It's all yours, Cheryl.
Okay, and I think Liz is going to put up the slide. Okay. All right. Liz, can you make it a little bigger, or is that as
Click
big?
on from the beginning at the far left
Oh,
or upper. There you go. Whoop. From the beginning. There you go.
oh, perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. So, next slide, please. Okay. Well, some people have wondered, who I am and how in the world I ever got involved in aging matters. And so I'll just give you a brief overview of the various qualifications that I have drawn on as I've done the program for the last 7 years. I am a registered nurse. I haven't practiced in many years, but grew up in Wisconsin and did get an RN degree and practiced for a few years. And then at the time, and this was in the very, very late 60s, when most of my friends had gotten married, I had not even found anybody, and the Vietnam War was going on. And I didn't have anything better to do than, I didn't want to stay in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. So I joined the Army, and I'm a veteran. I was an Army nurse for several years. I spent part of my Army nurse career at Camp Zama, Japan, during the Vietnam era, and in fact took care of a lot of veterans who were coming back from Vietnam. And Camp Zama in Japan was the stopping off point before many of these injured troops went back to the United States. So I spent part of my time in Camp Zama, Japan, finished up my 2-year tour of duty at Walter Reed Hospital, which at that time was still over on Georgia Avenue. Of course, it's now moved to Bethesda. So I'm a veteran as well. In addition, I have a public health background. I had the nursing degree, and I decided that one thing that was difficult for me, quite frankly, was I wasn't very comfortable around sick people, which is not a good thing for nurses. So I went back to school. I finished up, got an undergraduate degree at the University of Maryland, and then got a graduate degree in public health, which focuses more on prevention and keeping people healthy, which seemed to make lots more sense at the time. And then for quite a few years, I spent working as a health executive at various health associations. I represented optometrists and public health officials and podiatrists and state health officials. And that was a wonderful career. Also worked on Capitol Hill as a staff member for the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. And then finally, since I do have a tendency to talk a lot, and in fact, I love to tell the story about the fact that in third grade, when you used to get these little deportment, which was a way of your teacher telling your parents exactly how their son or daughter behaves in class, the one thing that I always remember my second grade teacher, no, it was a third grade teacher saying was talks. And this was very indicative of what I do. And so I did go back to American University and got another degree in communication. And ultimately that led to my involvement and founding of Aging Matters. So next slide, please.
Hey, Cheryl, before we go on, somebody wanted to know, are you a registered member of Women in the Military at Arlington National Cemetery?
I I am not. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I in fact on Veterans Day, I gave a presentation. I was the representative for the Army and talked about my experience in Japan. And so, yes, I am registered. But I thank you for that question. And that's always a strong promotional activity of the Women's Military Memorial at Arlington Cemetery, that women who are veterans register there. So, good question. So what happened is that of course I'm getting older, and as we all are, and it began to dawn on me that maybe there was a new role for me, especially because my peers are getting older. In fact, here's an interesting statistic in terms of the demographics. The number of Americans 65 and above will double from 52 million. This is a little bit of an older statistic in 2018 to 95 million by 2060. So there's a lot going on with our population getting older. And now, of course, since 23% of the population will be over 65, they are more racially and ethnically diverse, and they have different needs. And so one of the things that occurred to me is that there might be an opportunity to speak to those aspects of getting older. And it could be where people live, residence choices. It could be health and safety issues. Because have a health background, talking about health and safety issues is particularly of interest to me. People do a lot of different things as they get older. They have social interests, they're involved in various activities, faith communities. And so this too might be topics that would be of interest and want for older adults and their families and caregivers to learn more about. Especially also another one, programs and services. People want to know what's out there. Especially oftentimes I've discovered the adult children of older adults, because sometimes when things are changing for their parents, they don't know exactly where to turn. And so providing programs about programs and services is very important. Timely and relevant subjects that folks want to learn about, and how it impacts them and their lives. And so I wanted to talk about that. And then finally, useful products. And in fact, one of the things that I'm going to mention in a moment is some of the topics that are featured on the TV episodes, which I also produce in addition to the podcast. So these are the issues that I felt were of interest and would be of interest to older adults. And I can give examples of lots of programs that I've done in each of these areas, but I don't want to muddy the water right now, but this was kind of an overview. So next slide, please. Well, I live in Arlington, and as it turns out, Arlington Independent Media is about 5 minutes away from my house. And in 2016, they had already been producing television shows on the cable network, but they established a radio station there, WERA 96.7 FM, over at Arlington Independent Media. And that was in, as I said, in 2016. And so I thought, well, given my interest in aging issues, my love of wanting to talk and share information, I launched Aging Matters Radio in January of 2017. So I am now celebrating, I'm going into my 8th year of producing Aging Matters, and I'm very excited to share that information with you. In addition, as I said, at Arlington Independent Media, they were regularly producing TV shows on Comcast Channel 69 and Verizon Channel 38 in Arlington. And I thought, well, there might be some topics that lend themselves more appropriately for a visual activity. And so in September 2018, with the help of volunteers, volunteer crew members, and that the TV show was established, and I would do that on a monthly basis. And I would and I'll talk about finding guests and this kind of thing in a moment. So right now, the TV is, because Arlington Independent Media is in transition, I haven't been producing any recent TV shows, but I can share with you where you can find the ones that have already are on the air, or not on the air, but are on YouTube. So next slide, please. So before I show where you can access both the radio and the TV, folks sometimes like to know a little bit about, well, how do you find new topics? Well, needless to say, based on what I just showed a moment ago in terms of topic areas, quite frankly, it's not difficult to find new program topics. I mean, there are so many things out there. There are so many experts out there in the field of aging. There are so many people who have written books. I have interviewed quite a few people who have written books on aging related topics. Sometimes they have new products. I prefer not to promote a particular product unless it's been proven with studies, research, and this kind of thing. But oftentimes people produce or write books that are about issues pertaining to aging, and they're very relevant. So choosing a program topic is not very difficult. And as I said, with only 4 or 5 podcasts per month, it's not difficult to fill up a calendar and with new guests and new information. Sometimes I do a replay, but most often it is a new topic. Once I know what the topic is, then I try to find guests who can speak about those topics. They're usually experts. Sometimes I find out about them in the Washington Post in the health and science section. Sometimes they are, and I've had Wendy on the show several times to talk about the village movement. I've had people from Arlington Agency on Aging who talk about the various programs that they have. So I've had a lot of physicians, nurse practitioners, and in fact, the person who's going to be on the Coffee and Conversation next week, Christine Dolan, I've had her on my show. And so all these guests and many, many more, I have had an opportunity to interview. Then, of course, we select the program date. And it's really important now. The program date is a little bit more dicey because all of the podcasts are done remotely. I use an audio engineer who is actually located in Richmond. And so he is at his place, his home or his office. I am here where I'm sitting right now, and my guest is in their office or their home. And so everything is done remotely. I will say that the first couple of years that I did Aging Matters, I was interviewing my guests right in the radio studio at Arlington Independent Media. But then, of course, Arlington Independent Media closed because of COVID. And then it was difficult to reopen and have guests come over to Arlington Independent Media to be interviewed. And quite frankly, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, not too different from the fact that all of us who are listening to this program right now can be in our homes and be using Zoom. Using some kind of a remote system allows me to interview people all over the country. And it's been wonderful. And it's a lot easier than schlepping over to Arlington to be interviewed. So we usually pre-record the program about a week before the actual broadcast date. And once we've got that all set, then I send interview questions to my guests. I don't want to catch them off guard. I want to make sure that they will be able to cover everything that they think is important for the listeners. And again, I define listeners as older adults, their caregivers, and their family members. I want to address all of these audiences. So I prepare the first draft of the interview questions, and then I send them to my guest, and I say, take a look at these. Have I covered everything? Is there something that you think, I don't think I want to talk about that. I'm not qualified to do that, or that would be an inappropriate question. But we want to make sure that we maximize the time that we're together on the program and that I ask good interview questions. And so we do have a so-called pre-show or pre-program phone call. And we do this for both the radio and the TV programs. And then we just quickly go over the questions and edit. I make any edits and I make sure that we're ready to go for the program. And then I talk about the format, what's going to happen during the interview and how they'll be working together either with the audio engineer, or if it's TV, they'll be what the TV show will look like. And then I produce and host the show. And as far as the radio, that's been done again every week. I usually pre-record on a Monday or Tuesday, and then, as I said, it broadcasts the following Tuesday. And and then in terms of the TV show, I produce it like 1 month before. For example, if we do something in January, then the TV show will be shown on the cable channels the next month, and it'll also be posted on YouTube. So next slide, please. So as far as the radio is concerned, one other good thing, in addition to the fact that the radio program is still broadcast on WERA in Arlington on Tuesdays from 2 to 3, and then that same program is re-aired on Friday. The radio program has now also become a podcast. That is an additional good occurrence that happened when COVID hit. The podcasts are much broader and go all over the country. There's something called Mixcloud, which is less well known as compared to Apple or Spotify. And these links are also on my website, which I'll get to in a second. So and you can either log on those directly, or you can also look at the radio page on the website. But all of the programs that I have done all the way back to 2017 are all available. And and as I said, on the bottom, it says for a full list of past radio programs, you can visit agingmattersonline.com/radio show, or you can just go to agingmattersonline.com and find the radio page, and all of the programs are listed there, and they are in a categorical listed under categories, but sometimes it's hard to find them. So one of the things I'm going to mention now and say again at the end is, if sometime anybody who's listening right now wants to say, Cheryl, have you ever done a program on dementia? And please send me an email, and I can send you the link so that you can listen to that hour-long program. And my guests always give information about where the website, where people can get additional information. And so that's a really important part of my interview, is to be sure and give the resources so folks can follow up if they need help. I'll give you an example, which I think is also important. Oftentimes, the older adult children are trying to decide, can mom or dad still stay at home, or do they need more assistance? And I've done a program by folks who help determine what the best, it's a company called Care Patrol. And people can listen to that program, and then they can get in touch with that person who will work with the family to determine, can they stay at home? Do they need nursing home care? Or do they need some kind of a retirement location? But and I'm not plugging that particular program, but it's just an example of how sometimes folks need help and they just don't know where to turn. So that's the radio. Next slide, please. As far as the television, as I said, the TV is on Comcast Channel 69 and Verizon Channel 38 in Arlington, Sundays at 5:30 p.m. and Wednesdays at 6 p.m. And then you can see all of the TV episodes on my website, which again is agingmattersonline.com. And it's the last page, the TV show, and all 40 episodes are there. And you can also go to YouTube. Just log on to YouTube and look up Aging Matters TV show, and you will see all of the videos there, all the 40 episodes that I have done so far. So next slide, please. Um, Again, if you'd want to send me an email, it's cbeversdorf@comcast.net. And oops, and well, that's okay. And the website is agingmattersonline.com. And so part of the presentation today was just to kind of alert you to some of the kinds of programs. As I said, I couldn't possibly tell you about all 330 because I would not want to bore you. But just for example, here is uh, a, a program that I just produced yesterday, and it will be on the podcast and on WERA next week. It's about intervention for people with dementia and their caregivers. And Barbara Hewlett is an author, and she's also a healing design strategist. And she wrote a book called Taming the Chaos of Dementia. And the interview provides insight in how dementia-induced behaviors can be moderated with simple home environment interventions. Next week, I'm going to be interviewing someone who wrote a book about senior moments. And he's going to talk about senior moments and strategies to prevent them. So those are some programs that are coming up in January. But to just give you some highlights so that that will tickle your interest and hopefully have you take a look at the website or the podcast. In 2023, here are some really good programs that I thought were very helpful. And again, you can send me an email if you can't locate them. Under financial or personal information and financial planning, I interviewed a woman who called Marjorie Fox, who wrote a book called Women Wise, The Essential Guide to Financial and Lifestyle Decisions as We Age. Excellent, excellent book, and a lot of really good information in her book. Another another program that was really good under health and wellness, it was about healthcare navigation. And again, another book by two women, a physician and a woman who is has a master's in business, and they wrote a book called Navigating Your Healthcare Journey. Again, opportunities to listen to programs that provide a lot of really good information. Here's something that's a little bit interesting also, is called Spousal Care Partners. Co-author of a book about the unexpected journey of caring, the transformation from loved one to caregiver. And the other guest was somebody who actually was a spousal care partner. So that's a good example. And here's another one in terms of individual community activities, age and driving. It was written by a physician. And another program that it was the last program in 2023. It was about new relationships. A woman named Francine Russo is a journalist and author, and she wrote a book called Love After 50, How to Find It, Enjoy It, and Keep It. So not all people are authors, but these were the ones that I just thought were quite interesting and might be ones that you would want to listen to. As far as TV, I was just going to mention that, again, I talk a lot about various, what am I trying to say? Useful products. And the very last program that I produced, episode 40, was about durable medical equipment. And my guest talked about the assets for both wheelchairs as well as these scooters. And it was really an interesting, he has a company that sells and repairs and renovates both the wheelchairs as well as these motor scooters. These, I can't think of the exact name, but things that the scooters that people can get around with that are motorized. So that's a good example of a program that also had a demonstration so people could see what he was doing as well as talking about it. I've also done a program about pickleball. I know that's a very popular topic amongst many folks, and that was episode 27. I worked with one of the board members of Arlington Neighborhood Village, Sarah Papa, and we did 3 programs about that pertain to aging research, healthy home design, machine learning, games and fitness, cognitive decline. These were all topics that folks over at Marymount University are doing research on, and the programs then showed what kind of research and what they're finding. Going back a little bit further, just a couple, there was a program about adaptive apparel, what people might need to wear when they have had a stroke or a loved one is not able to get into their clothes as easily as they did before having a stroke or having arthritis. Another one, which was kind of fun, was about yoga and what yoga for older adults. In fact, there's a little funny story. The woman who was my guest did a little program called that she took from the advice or the comments and feedback from her clients. And it was, my body don't bend that way. And so she had to develop a program that was a little bit more created for older adults. So, and then one that actually is on the website right now is about pet therapy. It was one of my favorites. I had 2 people who do volunteer work of bringing pets to older adults in assisted living facilities. And the 2 guests brought their dogs along, and then they did a little bit of a demonstration of how they visit with people who are in nursing homes or assisted living facilities. So there's lots more: falls, Parkinson's disease, hearing assistive devices. It's all on the website, and I invite you to take a look at the TV episodes and listen to the programs. In summary, I am very, very proud of the many, many people that I have interviewed because they've provided so much useful information for older adults, their caregivers, and families. And as I close every single one of my programs, whether it's the radio or TV show, I always say, age is just a number, not a label. I'll be back again with you next week. Thank you.
So Cheryl, I wanted to ask, after you finish recording a radio or a TV show, how much post-production editing and tweaking and adjusting do you do?
Very little. Good question. First of all, at least for the radio, it's divided into 2 segments. And so since Arlington Independent Media asks that the time span of the program be no more than about 57 minutes, the 2 segments are usually about, I don't know, 25 minutes and 23 minutes. But quite frankly, the editing of the guy who used to be my audio engineer was to make sure that it fit within that time frame. For podcasts, it can be any length, but for the radio segments, they have to be a particular length. But as my former radio producer used to say, Cheryl, I'm going to edit out more of what you're saying and make sure that I save what the guest is saying, because that's really the most important. Because sometimes when I ask questions, I tend to maybe embellish them a little bit. So Robert would used to, take out. But again, it was always that time frame, particularly for radio programs. Any other questions, Gary?
I'm not seeing any, but I do have one other myself, which is, it sounds like you do quite a bit of preparation and, getting your guests ready. And so that everybody knows what's going to happen when you start rolling. But have you ever had programs where it kind of went off the rails and, your guests decided they were going to go off on a tangent that you hadn't anticipated?
Not too often. I mean, I do remember one time when, and this was when I were still doing it over at Arlington Independent Radio booth. There was somebody who was sitting next to me, and she just kept going on and on and on. And I really wanted to go like this, but obviously I was very respectful of her. But it was like she was not really answering the question. For the most part, people are very well prepared. They know that they need to stop in terms of not making their answers too long, but long enough to provide information. Quite frankly, Gary, the issue that comes up most of all is helping them sometimes just get online, especially for the podcasts. Some people don't have Chrome or don't know that they should use Chrome rather than Foxfire, or you can't hear them, or they don't have headphones, or they don't have a microphone. And so it's more the technical aspects. And in fact, it's funny you should mention that. Yesterday, I was doing the program, everything was going fine. We were 15 minutes into the program, and somebody lost the internet. And the whole program she was gone. She was gone. And I thought, what do we do now? Long story short, she managed to find another computer in her house that she could use, and we were able to continue. And that's always a little dicey too, because then you figure, now let's see, where were we? How much did we already do on the program? We had done about 15 minutes. And so we were able to pick up where we left off. And then I'm hoping that my current audio producer will be able to edit and make it sound great. So, but those are the kinds of things. I always just say, just in general, I don't need to tell you guys my age, but I figure I've learned a lot in terms of digital and audio and this kind of thing that I would have never learned had I not been able to do Aging Matters. So I feel very humbled by this experience.
As someone who was a guest of Cheryl's early on in my tenure here at A&V, I can only say, one, I appreciated the fact that she gave me questions in advance, because I really wasn't that knowledgeable way back when. And it's like, oh my God, what's the answer to this question? So that was fun. And of course, you're completely nervous. I mean, we're all, I think, a little bit more familiar now with talking to a computer screen and knowing that there's an audience out there listening to you. But at the time, it was the first time I'd ever done any kind of public speaking to a computer. I was there in the studio with her, but still, it's the same thing. So she makes her guests feel very comfortable, and she's prepared and they're prepared. And I think good information is shared because of that.
Well, and thank you for mentioning that, Wendy, because it's kind of poignant in terms of what happened in terms of the visit that I had with you when we were still over at Arlington Independent Media. If you remember, you brought a guest with you,
right,
who was just absolutely, and I can't remember her name.
I'm pretty sure it was Ike Barnett. And many of the volunteers on this
call.
No,
it was a woman. It was a woman.
Yes. Right.
Who now about maybe 3, 4, 5 months ago passed away.
That was Ike.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought it was a woman. I'm sure it was.
That's her
no,
name.
Ike was a woman. She was a woman.
Okay. Well, and when I learned that she had passed away, I sent the link to her family because I thought that they would really appreciate listening to that particular episode in which she was talking.
Right.
And it was lovely to do that. So,
I think the other thing is as Cheryl's reminding, I think Liz and others who schedule speakers, we should look at your list of folks that you've talked with, and invite some of them, appropriate ones, to come and be coffee and conversation speakers, where we can have a little bit more engagement. The challenge with the radio and the podcast is it's one way, and on coffee and conversation, we can do what Gary's doing right now, which is ask questions and gain more information. So I think we should take a look at your library and see what makes good sense for us.
Well, and in fact, to that point, the one that I'd mentioned about the navigating healthcare, I did get an email in the last couple of days from, I can't remember her name, but at any rate, she asked, could they do another podcast? Well, it's a little early to do another podcast, but I would love to have her on Coffee and Conversation because she was really good in terms of her.
Well, send
Darlene
her
Rothko.
send her to Liz.
I will. I will. And I will send some others as well. So if there
Perfect.
aren't any other questions, then I know that the other part of this today's program was to spend time sharing our 2024 New Year's resolutions. So anybody want to speak up about that?
Well, I've resolved to stop eating out so much and start cooking more at home. So this last holiday season has just been kind of endless meeting friends in restaurants, and I can't keep going on.
Okay. And you
I
think,
But that's okay, Gary. You can be our restaurant reviewer and you can tell us where to go.
I hate making resolutions and I try to treat them as goals for the coming year. And I have 3 goals. I want to continue decluttering, which I started last year and kind of fell apart, but I'm making it a goal for this year as well. And I want to walk more. I have been trying to walk and increase the number of steps every day, but it hasn't been how do I put it? It's been intermittent, and I'd like to be able to walk more and do it more often. And then my third one is to be kind and respectful. Sometimes I can get pretty sarcastic, and I'm trying to nip that in the bud and be more kind and more respectful of others.
okay.
Pat, I pulled off of 66 a couple of weeks ago on Glebe Road to go north, and there's a sign on one of the street lamps that says "Be kind." And I just, that became the theme of one of our holiday messages because I thought, yeah, it's pretty appropriate.
Okay. Anybody else? Wendy, do you have any?
I do. Basically, new skills. All holidays are always when people make resolutions for that. And every year I've been saying I've never been paper trained in music. I'm going to learn how to sight sing. And so here we go again.
Well, Liz, we put something in the newsletter this past week about Encore, and they're looking to increase their chorale singers and say no talent needed. So you might check out what's going on there. I know mine was, I used to wish for, health and happiness in the new year. Now all I wish for is that my body go back to where it was 2 years ago. I'm sick and tired of back aches and wrist aches and this, that, and the other. I just want to reset to about 2 years ago, and then I'll be happy.
Okay. Anybody else?
Anne, you're on mute, Anne.
Anne is on mute.
Thank you. That wouldn't it be nice if we could all just have mute buttons for other people, especially ones on the telephone. My goal is to use the word squirrel and stop being a dog chasing a squirrel. And so I thought, okay, so remember, you might catch that squirrel and he'll have fleas. So do what you're doing now and finish something without, constantly changing to something else.
Well said. Well said. Anybody else?
Just said violates all the rules of social media. I always start out thinking, oh yes, I'm going to answer this email. And then I see, oh, good grief, cat video. And here we are.
Are you a cat lover, Liz?
No, I use cat videos. I like cats. I'm a dog person, but I've noticed cat videos are taking over the universe. They even have them in outer space now. They were broadcasting cat videos. So, as
I
a
see that.
dog person,
I see Pax and Nancy are on. Pax, how is the Christmas decoration, Christmas light decoration this year?
Well, ultimately it went pretty well. It always gives me challenges in the beginning. So I had, various issues I had to work through to get it to work the way I needed it to. But ultimately it did. And we had a lot of visitors. We had a steady stream, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve and in between. Yeah, so it was good.
Yeah, we always enjoy when people in the neighborhood come down with their kids. That gives you
Right.
the most satisfaction when they're just walking around, And they get so excited if you go out and give the kids a candy cane. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I did that one year. I took my neighbors and we drove over. And like you say, we got out of the car and you guys came out of the house and they were thrilled.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's fun.
Margie, I see your hands up. Margie, are you raising your hand or that's just what your picture looks like? Must just be her picture.
Well, one thing that Steve Cordell wrote in the chat was, may your troubles in the coming new year be as short-lived as your resolutions. So that's well said, as if you can get beyond January and you're still working on it, that's always a good thing as well. So
Yeah, the Post had an article about resolutions and some different things. And it's like, don't make them too big. Basically, and not one, they were talking about a lot of different things, but yeah, make it manageable, I think.
well, let's see, the time is 10:55 and I'm sure folks have other things to do. So we can always stop a little earlier than usual. I'm trying to find my piece of paper here that mentions, as I had mentioned before, it's going to be Chris Dolan is going to be the person that is going to be our guest next week on Wednesday, January 10th. She's going to talk about money management. Christine is also a member of the board of Arlington Neighborhood Village. So you should definitely plan to, and next week I'll put the link on in terms of when Christine was on Aging Matters, so that you'll have a chance to look at that in case she doesn't address something that you want to know about. So Gary, did you have anything else to add, or should we bid adieu and go start doing our New Year's resolutions?
No, I don't have anything to add, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording and we can all say goodbye.
Okay. Well, thank you all and again, Happy New Year, and I hope you'll enjoy Aging Matters. Be sure and send me a note if you're looking for a particular program.